You are there, in the darkness, feeling the weight of the earth pressing down on you. It feels like the end, doesn't it? As if every piece of your strength, your hope, your identity has been buried beneath a pressure that feels impossible to survive. It is cold, silent, isolated, a place that looks and feels very much like a grave. And maybe you have already convinced yourself that this is the final chapter of your story. But what if I told you this is not your grave? What if this darkness, this pressure, this unbearable weight is actually the exact environment required for your true beginning? Let's be honest, it feels like death. The death of a dream, the death of a relationship, the death of a version of yourself you believed would last forever. It is the grief of lost security, failed health, stolen peace. When we reach this place, the world loses its color. Other people's happiness feels distant, almost offensive, and every new day demands enormous effort just to continue existing. This is the experience of the grave. The belief that life has buried you alive under failures, pain, and circumstances beyond your control. You look upward and see only darkness, no light, no exit, and the story your mind begins to whisper becomes terrifying. This is permanent. That is the most dangerous illusion darkness can create, because darkness is never a final destination, it is a passage. This experience is universal, yet we tend to believe we are the only ones living it. We feel ashamed of our suffering, as if it were proof of personal failure. We hide it, resist it, fight against it, without realizing something Carl Jung once warned about. What you resist persists. The war against darkness is often what prevents transformation from completing its sacred work. And this is exactly where ancient wisdom offers us a new language to understand suffering: alchemy. Ancient alchemists were not simply trying to transform lead into gold in their laboratories. Carl Jung discovered they were actually mapping a deep psychological process, the transformation of the human soul. And the first stage of this transformation is called Nigredo, the blackening. Nigredo represents chaos, decomposition, symbolic death. It is the dissolution of everything that once gave you stability, the collapse of illusions, the breakdown of identity. The alchemists had a phrase: when you see your matter turning black, rejoice, the work has begun. Your suffering is not an error in your story. It is the raw material from which transformation is born. Your darkness is not a sterile grave, it is a fertile womb. The earth that seems to suffocate you is actually nourishing you. It is the dark soil where a seed you never knew you carried has finally cracked open and begun to grow roots. The pressure is not meant to destroy you, it is forcing the seed to seek the light. Remaining inside Nigredo does not mean passivity. It is courageous inner work. Inside this stage, several processes occur. There is calcinatio, the fire that burns the ego and false defenses, reducing us to essential truth. Then comes solutio, the dissolving of rigid emotional structures, when tears and overwhelming feelings break down what prevented growth. And there is putrefactio, the decay of old habits, limiting beliefs, and unresolved wounds. It smells like death, but it is the ultimate fertilizer for rebirth. The symbol of this stage is the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail. It represents the cycle of self-consumption required for renewal. Jung said, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." No gestation lasts forever. When the work of Nigredo is accepted, light begins to emerge naturally. The next stage appears, albedo,
the whitening. This is the first dawn after the longest night of your life, a state of clarity, peace, and emotional purification. Old identities dissolve, and what remains is a blank page filled with quiet wisdom. Then comes citrinitas, the yellowing, the sunrise of consciousness. This is when insight arrives. You begin to understand why the suffering happened. Gratitude quietly replaces fear. And finally, Rubedo, the reddening. This is rebirth, the union of opposites within you, light and shadow, pain and joy, masculine and feminine. The lead of suffering transforms into the gold of wholeness. You do not return from darkness as the same person. You return reborn. So, how do you navigate this sacred process? The first step is surrender. Stop fighting the darkness. Instead, ask yourself one simple question. What is trying to be born inside me right now? Treat this stage as a sacred gestation. Protect your energy. Seek silence, nature, art, reflection. Observe your emotions without judgment. Write, meditate, seek guidance if needed. Your role is not to escape the darkness, but to participate consciously in your rebirth. Because alchemy never eliminates raw material, it transforms it. Your pain is not waste, it is treasure in transformation. If you feel comfortable, share in the comments one moment when your grave began to feel like a womb. Your story may be the permission someone else needs to trust their own transformation. And if these reflections speak to your soul, consider subscribing to Chronicles of Time so we can continue exploring these ancient mysteries together. Remember this: no seed becomes a tree without first being buried in total darkness. Your pain is not punishment, it is a portal. Your suffering is not weakness, it is proof that deep transformation is taking place. You are not being destroyed, you are in gestation.